The night my wife wore that dress to church, something in me woke up that I thought had died. Not our marriage, but the part of me that used to look at her and feel my heart race. I didn't expect it. It happened in the most ordinary moment. I was standing in the hallway looking for my car keys when the bedroom door opened, and she stepped out. For a second I honestly thought I was seeing someone else. Not because she looked different, but because I suddenly saw the woman I married the way I used to see her. The red dress fit her like it had been waiting for her body. Not inappropriate, not loud, just confident, dangerously confident. The kind of dress that makes a man pause mid-thought and wonder how he ever allowed himself to forget what he had. She walked past me slowly toward the mirror in the hallway, and I realized I had been staring for several seconds. She caught it instantly. My wife has always been able to read my face better than anyone. "You're staring," she said without even turning around. I cleared my throat and pretended to adjust my watch. "I'm not staring." She turned around and folded her arms, smiling in that playful way that had disarmed me since the day we met. "You definitely are." I tried to recover my dignity. "It's just a different dress." She stepped closer to the mirror and turned slowly. "Well," she said softly, "maybe different is what we need." At the time I thought she was teasing me, but now I know she meant every word. Because if I'm honest, something had been fading between us for months. Not love. Love was still there. But passion had quietly stepped out of the room. Life had filled the space instead. Work, bills, stress, exhaustion. And little by little, the fire that once made our marriage feel alive had turned into something comfortable. Too comfortable. The kind of comfort that slowly turns two lovers into roommates. Standing there watching her adjust that red dress, something stirred inside me that I hadn't felt in a long time. Desire. Real desire. But along with that feeling came something else. A little guilt. Because we were about to walk into church. And suddenly my thoughts were anything but holy. The drive there felt strange. Not awkward. Just charged. The kind of silence where both people are aware something is happening, but neither one wants to say it out loud. Streetlights passed over the windshield as we drove. Soft music played on the radio, and every few seconds I caught myself looking at her. Her hands resting calmly on her lap, the curve of her smile, the way the dress moved when she shifted in her seat. She pretended not to notice, but I knew she noticed, because every time I glanced over, that small smile appeared again. When we pulled into the church parking lot, it was already full. People were greeting each other near the entrance. Children ran between the cars laughing. Everything looked normal. But as we walked toward the building, I noticed something strange. People were looking at us. More specifically, they were looking at her. Not in a disrespectful way. Just surprised. Like they were suddenly realizing something that had always been there. That my wife was beautiful. And unexpectedly, I felt proud. Inside the church, the worship music began. Voices rose together. Hands lifted in prayer. But I struggled to concentrate. Because every time she moved beside me, her perfume drifted softly into the air. Warm. Familiar. And suddenly memories started returning. Our first date. The nervous way I tried to make her laugh. The first time I held her hand. The night I proposed. And the look in her eyes when she said yes. Moments I had somehow stopped thinking about. Then halfway through the sermon, something unusual happened. The pastor suddenly stopped speaking, right in the middle of his sentence. The room slowly grew quiet. He looked across the congregation like he was searching for someone. Then his eyes stopped. Right on us. He stepped down from the pulpit and began walking slowly down the aisle, every step echoing softly in the silent room. My heart started beating faster. When he reached our row, he stopped. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. "There is a marriage here tonight," he said slowly, "that heaven refuses to let die." My wife's hand squeezed mine tightly. The pastor looked directly at me. "Son," he said gently, "do you remember the first time you saw her?" The question hit me like a memory rushing back to life. A small coffee shop, rain against the windows. She walked in wearing a yellow dress, and the moment I saw her, I knew I wanted to know her. The pastor nodded slowly. You couldn't stop looking at her then. A few quiet laughs moved through the congregation. Then his voice softened. "And tonight, God wanted you to see her again." My wife lowered her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. The pastor continued. The enemy did not attack your marriage with betrayal. He paused. He attacked it with forgetfulness. The words landed deep inside my chest, because that was exactly what had happened. Nothing dramatic. No affair. No betrayal. Just forgetting. Forgetting the passion. Forgetting the gratitude. Forgetting the miracle standing beside me. Then the pastor looked at my wife and smiled warmly. "Daughter, God told you to wear that dress tonight." The church laughed softly, but the pastor lifted his hand. Not to tempt anyone. He turned toward me again, but to remind your husband of the woman he prayed for. Something inside me broke open. Not pain. Something softer. Healing. Because suddenly I realized something painful. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped seeing my wife. Not intentionally. Just slowly. The way people stop noticing sunlight when it shines every day. Later that night when we drove home, the silence between us felt different. Alive. When we stepped inside the house, she turned toward me slowly. "So," she said softly, "did the dress work?" I stepped closer to her, close enough to see the small nervous smile on her face. Then I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her close. And for the first time in a long time, I held her the way I used to. "Yes," I whispered. It reminded me of the miracle I almost forgot. Sometimes the enemy doesn't destroy love with sin. Sometimes he simply makes us forget why we fell in love. But God knows exactly how to remind us. If this story touched you, comment, "Love Restored," and subscribe for more untold faith stories that reveal how God still moves, even in the quiet places of our hearts.